So today, or in this video, we're gonna discuss decimals and fractions and how they relate. And we talked a little bit about this before. We kind of expand on this now, and I'm just gonna jump right in. And let's use a different color. I tend to use black a lot, so we're gonna use blue or teal. It's a color, and so the question is, if we have, a number, say 1/5, and we multiply it by 2 over 2, and we get 2/10, what are we doing? Well, really what we're doing is we're multiplying by 1, because we know this as 2 over 2 is the same as 2 divided by 2, which is 1, right? All right, I like to sometimes write like remember any number over itself is always 1, and sometimes what I like to do is like just have people draw it like this, because this is exactly what is happening. Okay, so with that knowledge, we're going to kind of dive right into this and try and understand fractions and decimals, because they really lend themselves to each other. So if I have a fourth and I want to change it into a decimal, here's the question that I want to ask. I'm going to come all the way back to the beginning of the year and talk about place value. On place value, what we had was we had 10,000, thousands, hundreds, tenths, ones, and so on and so forth. But what I really want to hone in on is these three right here. Hey there. Tenths, hundredths, thousands. Okay, those three have a certain ring to them. Notice tenths, hundredths, thousands, and if we wrote them as a fraction, tenths, hundredths, thousands, they have the same ring: 1/10, 1,000th, 100th. And if we wrote them as decimals, 1/10, 1,000th, 100th, 1,000th. Okay, so that is what we're connecting right now. Okay, so the question becomes, when we're multiplying these fractions, we come back to this wonderful number, 1/4. What can I multiply 4 by to get a number such as tenths, hundredths, thousands? Now, if you're screaming at the screen right now saying 25, 25, 25, definitely I can multiply by 25. But we want to multiply by 25 and not change the meaning of the number. So if we go back, to the 1/5 times 2 over 2, we're multiplying by 1. We're really not changing anything. We're making an equivalent fraction. 2/10 is the same as 1/5. These two are the same number. It's just twice as big. Okay, so this is an equivalent fraction of that, right? They're equivalent. They're equal. Okay, because this number is 1, and only because that number is 1. Okay, so we want to do the same thing here. In order to make 25 1, we need to put 25 on top, so we don't change anything. So now we have 4 times 25, which is 100. We can work with that, and 25. So we have 25 hundredths, and if we write that as a decimal, we end up with, well, I'll put the 0.25 or 25 hundredths. Here's another reason why I encourage you to learn how to read decimals correctly, because this will make even more sense and go even quicker for you. Let's try another one. So what happens if we have 1/8? Can't reduce it, can't do anything like that, right? It's the same thing if we'll do it with both of these. We have 6/8. Okay, this one has an equivalent fraction that might be a little nicer to work with, right? What is that equivalent fraction? Well, 6/8 is equal to 3/4. So we'll do both of these. And 3/4, what are we going to multiply 4 by to get tenths, hundredths, or thousands? Well, we just did 4. We know we multiply by 25. We know 3 times 25 is 75 over 100. How do I write that? 0.75 or 75 hundredths is how I read that. But with 1/8, we don't have anything that lends itself very well to 1/8, or do we? I know that 8 goes into 1,000. Now you can divide it out and try and figure that out, and I encourage you to do that. I already know that 125 goes into 1,000 8 times. Okay, and if I do it to the bottom, I want to make the number 1. This is what your goal is when you're changing and converting fractions and decimals, is you want to be multiplying by the same. It's the same thing with measurements. Remember, we're not really changing anything. We're just looking at something differently. So here we have 125 over 1,000. How would I say that? 125 thousandths, right? That is exactly how I would say the decimal. So that's how you do it. It's super easy. And, you can get bigger. I'll do one more thing, like what happens if it's 2 1/4? So we already converted a fourth. Well, now the decimal would just have a whole number in front of it. So when you multiply it, you could change it, or you can just remove that fourth, right? 1/4 times 25 over 25 is equal to 25 hundredths. And we have to put the 2 back. So I'm going to do that here. 2 and 25 hundredths. And the way that you read it is the way that you write it, 2 and 25 hundredths. So there's a connection there. And if you can connect those two things, that is huge. So good luck.